In this video, I'm gonna show you the exact looping process that I use on every high-ticket sales conversation. Here's what I can guarantee you. If you've been in sales for any length of time, you know that you could be having a great conversation with Mary or John and everything's going perfectly. And you're like, man, you know what? This is great. They're jiving with me. They're vibing with me. The rapport's great. The solution seems awesome. They're, head bobbing the whole time. And then what happens is, imagine this is the start of the call. You get down to the end of the call and then boom, you go to close, and then what happens? John and Mary gives you an objection. If you're good, you know how to handle the objection. If you're not good, you're gonna stutter, and then you're gonna, put your tail between your legs, and you're gonna get off the call, and then you're gonna get mad at yourself, right? So I don't want you to do that. So in this, let me just give you the looping process that I use to get over every objection, and it's very simple. It's just a problem loop and a belief loop. And I do the same loops every single time. So for example, you get down to the end of the call, right? And John says, you know what, man, everything sounds great. I just need 24 hours to think about it, or whatever it is, right? I just want to talk to my spouse, or it doesn't matter what the objection is. Honestly, all objections come down to a stall or money, right? That's basically it. So John says,
just give me 24 hours to think about it. This sounds great.
And then I'm gonna say, right, first step when you get an objection, you've learned this, is you're gonna acknowledge what Bob said, right? Acknowledge it. So I'd be like, totally get it, Bob, that you want 24 hours to think it over. And then from there, I go into the problem loop. So what I want to identify with Bob is, does he believe that my solution is the solution for him? Does he believe with absolute certainty that I can solve his problem? Because if he doesn't think that, then there's nowhere to take this objection, right? We have to deal with that first. So the first loop is, hey, you know what, Bob? Thanks for sharing that with me, Bob, that you want, 24 hours to think about it. Hey, at the end of the day, Bob, what I want to make sure is that wherever you put your money, whether it's our program, Bob, somebody else's program, I would never want you to do something that you don't feel like is going to get you the outcome that you want. So I know, Bob, that your main goal right now is to replace your income with your 9-to-5, generating an income online. So based off of everything we've talked about, Bob, do you believe what we have to offer is gonna get you out of your 9-to-5 and allow you to make that money online? And now I listen, right? Because now what I do, I just ask Bob in a very empathetic way, does my solution solve his problem? Now Bob's only got two answers. Either he's gonna give me a certainty like,
you know what, man, honestly, Rich, this is everything I'm looking for. This is a great program.
Or he's gonna give you a hesitancy answer like,
you know what, Rich, it sounds pretty good. I think it will, Rich. I think it will, but.
And then if he gives you a non-certain answer, what you need to do right now is you need to build certainty around your solution. Bob needs to know that this is the solution for him until he gives you an absolutely, right? So if Bob gives you hesitancy right here, you're gonna build up your program. You're gonna figure out what that's all about. Like, hey, Bob, you know what, Bob? It sounds like there might be a few questions that maybe are lingering in your mind. What specific questions, Bob, do you have for me right now to ensure that this is the perfect program for you, right? That might be one question. Another question could be like, hey, Bob, you know what? If there's just one thing you would change about the program to get you the results that you're looking for, what would that be? And now I can start having a conversation around my program, my product, to increase the certainty in Bob and say, boom, this is the program for me. So now let's just assume we got past loop number one. So Bob says,
dude, you know what? Based off of all of this, I think this is the program. This is the product that I need.
So loop number one, then I go back to my closing line, right? So I've went back to the loop, and then my closing line is, here's what's gonna happen next. I use this closing line on all my sales calls. I've used it for the last 3 years. In my opinion, it's the greatest closing line you could possibly use. It's so simple. So you answer the objection, you kind of walk through it with Bob. He says, you know what, after all, this is the program for me. Then I'm gonna say, hey, great, Bob. Hey, you know, Bob, here's what's gonna happen next. I'm gonna send you some information. You can send it via email, chat. Open up the link, Bob, start filling out your information, put in your name, your email. At the end, it's gonna ask for some credit card information. And then while you're doing that, Bob, I'm gonna go ahead and get your onboarding ready, right? And then boom, I just go back into the close like that. Now, Bob's, he's got the thing open, he's going through it. Well, let's just say Bob goes, well.
You know what, Rich? You know what, I really just would like some time to kind of think things through and just ensure this is the perfect program for me.
So now, where are we at in the call? Well, we've done the sales conversation. He gave us the objection. He wants to think about it for 24 hours. We did the first loop, which is the problem. By the way, 90% of the time when you do the first loop, 90%, That's gonna solve the objection, right? Because they just need clarity that if they get your solution, their problem's gonna be gone. And most people, that'll be sufficient because they're gonna be like, well, why wouldn't I move forward? The problem's gonna be gone, right? So usually 90% of the time, the first loop's gonna work. Then if it doesn't, you go back into the close, they give you another objection. The second loop is where your problem is, okay? And the second loop is a belief issue. There's something subconsciously now holding Bob or Mary back from making a decision because they just admitted that your solution is gonna solve their problem. So if you look at it from a logical standpoint, it would make sense that the prospect moves forward if they think your solution is going to help, right? But that doesn't happen to all people because they have a limiting belief that is holding them back. And the best way to destroy a limiting belief is to have an honest conversation around it. So I go back into the close, I did the first loop, I go back into the close, he gives me another objection, then I'm gonna go to my second loop, which is a belief issue. And the only way you can bring this out is by just having a transparent conversation. You know, Bob, I totally understand. Doesn't matter what objection they gave you, right? Could be any objection. Totally understand, you acknowledge the objection. And then I'm gonna say, hey, you know what, Bob? I just wanna make sure we're on the same page. I know earlier you said, Bob, that what we're offering for you is gonna help you get the outcome that you want, right? And so at the end of the day, Bob, my biggest concern is that if you get off this call today, you already kind of know what you're gonna go back to, right, Bob? Like you're gonna go back to the old life, you're gonna go back to the old results. And that is the last thing I'd want for you, Bob. So do you think the smartest decision right now, Bob, would be to go back to what you already know and the results that you don't like? Or would it make more sense, Bob, to move forward with a solution that you already think is gonna work for you? And now I can start having a conversation about this, right? And I'm gonna hit him with truth and honesty and really make Bob think about his future and what he's doing this all for, right? Because I'm gonna lock him in with not only emotion, going to the future of what Bob wants, but also with logic of why it makes sense to go forward. You gotta use both emotion and logic. That's how you close people when you get down to the close. Hey, I wanna take a quick break and introduce you to the Closers Network. If you're not inside the Closers Network yet, you should join us. It's completely free. And 5 days a week, we're gonna go live with hands-on sales coaching. So you can join our coaches live, get feedback to your most pressing questions, increase your monthly commissions, and also land better remote closing opportunities. We have everything you need inside the Closers Network to skyrocket your income. And it's completely free. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to join the 4,500 plus students that are inside right now, smashing deals. Come mastermind with us. And all you gotta do is just click the link down below. It's in the description for you, and we can't wait to see you inside. Now, if you look back at the sales call, the first loop was the problem loop. I showed you exactly how to get over that. Second loop is the belief loop. I showed you how to get over that. You be honest with the prospect, right? And you really make them think about what's going on in his life right now. Because look, at the end of the day, prospect already knows as soon as they get off the call, they're gonna go back to their old life. They're gonna go back to their old thinking, their old ways of being. And they already are on the call because they don't want that for their life. They don't want the outcomes that they're getting now, or else they wouldn't be on the call with you. And you have to remind them of that to help them shatter that limited thinking, those beliefs that are holding them back. And this is where you have to be brutally honest with the prospect. Hey, John, you know, right now we're at a crossroads, right, John? It's like you could go down option A, road A, but you already know where that leads you, right? You already know that leads you back to the 9 to 5, to the grind that you don't like, to the things that you don't like, to the money that you just can't make, right? You already know that life, Bob, right? And now we're at this crossroads where you're trying to go down option B. And you're a little bit maybe nervous about it, right, Bob? Because you haven't been down that road before. So you don't know what it looks like, but you do know it's the route that you want to go. So based off of everything we talked about, Bob, what would make more sense? Would it make sense going down route A, where you already know that life, you already know the problems, you already know you don't want that? Or would it make more sense, Bob, to go down route B and give you a chance to live the life that you want? Notice I didn't use a magical script there. What I'm just doing is I'm just being honest with Bob. He already told me it's gonna solve his problem. He already told me he likes the solution. He's already declared that he doesn't like his current situation. So now what I'm doing is I'm using that to get Bob to realize that, wait a minute, you don't like this, you don't want this. This is the solution. If you go back to your old life, you're gonna get the same outcomes. Time for a better way. And you're gonna just play that loop until you crush their beliefs, right? And then one belief at a time, you're gonna do it with honesty until eventually Bob's like, you know what? The most logical, emotional move to make right now is to go forward, right? And then you break past this barrier and Bob is now able to make a decision. With that being said, guys, I hope this really helps you. This is a powerful lesson. You might have to play it twice to really understand the looping process. But remember, it's only 2 loops. You have the problem loop, go back to the close, then you have the belief loop, right? If you can remember that, you can close more deals and have more success. And of course, guys, if you haven't already, join the Closers Network. It's completely free. We go live 5 days a week. We give you free templates, scripts, everything you need to close more deals right now and land lucrative opportunities online. All right, if you want to join us, just click the link down below. Rich, out.